do I do with my hands? What do I do with my hands? Yokoso owashitare. Hey, welcome again to yet another story. This is a really good story. This is one that I actually really enjoy. Again, it's got a really folksy tall tales feel to it. So, with no more ado, let's just get into it. Once upon a time, in the province of Tango, there lived a sumo wrestler, sumobito, okay? Which, if you want more information about sumo and how they were in ancient Japan, as opposed to how they are today, please go watch the previous video about a guy named Narimura. There's more information about sumo wrestlers from a long time ago in there. So please go check that one out. But in this story, there's a sumo wrestler, sumobito, a sumo man, by the name of Amano Tsuneyo. And as I said before, he lived in the province of Tango. And Tango was a little bit removed from the capital of Japan. It wasn't super duper far, but it wasn't right next to it. He didn't live with the urban elites. He was a little bit out in the boonies. But one of the nice things about where Tsuneyo lived is there was a river really close to his house. This river was a very ancient river. It had been around for a long time, and as such, it was also very, very deep. But one summer day, Tsuneyo was chilling at home and decided that he needed to actually chill a little bit because it was hot. And the nice thing about this river is because it was deep and it was water, and if you've ever been around bodies of water, a lot of times cool air kind of comes off of them. And not only that, but this river had trees all along both banks. There were lots and lots of full leafy trees just everywhere. So not only was there a cool wind, but it had some really nice shade. It had some really, really nice shade. And so Tsuneyo decided to put on some light casual clothing. He got himself a walking stick, and he got one single servant boy to come with him, and he decided he was going to go chill at the side of this river. Now the thing about this river, though, is because it was so deep, it actually made the people who lived around it very uneasy. And I can say from personal experience from where I live, Japan does have a lot of rivers, but none of them are particularly deep. Even if they can get decently wide, they're pretty shallow, even at their height. And so for this river to be noticeably deep made most people a little concerned about what might be lurking within. It was so deep that you couldn't immediately see the bottom. You couldn't tell where the bottom was just by, poking a stick in there or swimming. You couldn't stand up in this river, which again is a little unusual for Japan. But the nice thing, thought Tsuneyo, was that he wasn't planning on going swimming, and he was a really strong guy. He was a notable, famous sumo wrestler who are strongmen. So he wasn't particularly worried about anything. He was just gonna go cool off under the shade of some trees by a cool river. Great time. So he's just literally chilling, just enjoying life, probably got his feet kicked back, probably got his back up against a tree, maybe even sipping on a little bit of a drink, something that had been chilled, because they did, in ancient Japan, they actually did have like storehouses of ice that they could keep all summer, that they could occasionally shave off some ice to make treats for the nobility. I mean, the nobility were usually the only ones who could afford this, and I don't know if Tsuneyo was that noble, was that high in office or rank. Just I'm trying to get you to imagine kicking back, maybe you've got some sunglasses on, you're at a nice mountain resort out away from all the hustle and bustle of the city, and it's just really, really relaxing, He's just chilling like a villain. I'm sorry. But while he's just gazing out over this river, enjoying life, he notices all of a sudden a disturbance in the water. A little jet stream of some kind that's slowly making his way towards him. And of course, when he sees this, he just kind of goes, What is it? What? He's curious. What is this? And right as he starts mouthing, What is that? He saw, slowly coming up out of the water, the head of a giant, monster-sized snake. Just slowly breaks the surface, and it stares at him. Just sits there and stares at him. Now, Tsuneyo couldn't see the whole snake. He could just see the head. But even judging by the head alone, this was massive. This was beyond anything anybody had seen to this point. It was huge. At first, Tsuneyo was a little bit worried that it was going to come up onto the bank after him. Obviously, this was freaky, right? But it didn't. It just stared at him. And by the time Tsuneyo realized, okay, it's just staring at me, he was watching to see what was going to happen, and realized it wasn't doing anything. It was just staring at him. As soon as he started getting a little bit uncomfortable and thinking, okay, this is really weird, he took a couple of steps back just to be safe. I mean, it wasn't making any sudden movements or anything, but you can't be too careful. It still just sat there and stared at him until it slowly pulled its head back under the water and disappeared. And again, Tsuneyo's just standing there, trying to process what just happened. What do I do? Is it gone? What did it want? Why was it just staring at me? He noticed near the far bank another disturbance in the water. And then, followed by that, another disturbance in the water closer to his bank, the bank that he was on. And all of a sudden, he sees this snake's tail come out of the water on the bank that he's at and slowly slither its way up onto the beach and over to where Tsuneyo is. Now, again, Tsuneyo is a strong dude. There is very little that could do harm to him. And he wasn't sure what to make of what he was seeing. This was the snake's tail. It wasn't the actual snake. And, he didn't want to startle it maybe by making any sudden movements. So he just kind of stood there and watched it, not knowing how exactly to react. And this tail just slowly made its way over to him, and it very gently wrapped itself around his leg. And then suddenly, it started pulling, yanking really hard on him. And it was at that moment Tsuneyo realized it was trying to drag him into the water. It wasn't just staring at him, it wanted to eat him. So, of course, Tsuneyo, now realizing that he was in a very dangerous situation, dug his heels in and he just pulled. He pulled to fight this thing. And Tsuneyo at the time was wearing some geita, he was wearing some shoes they were wooden shoes with wooden blocks on the underside of it. And the point of these shoes was to elevate you off the ground so you weren't walking on the ground and you didn't have your billowy clothes dragging. But he basically had these blocks of wood stuck to the bottoms of his feet. And so as he dug his heels into the ground, he stuck these blocks of wood into the ground to hopefully give him a little bit more to push off of, something to hook into the ground. And so he's pulling, trying to resist. And then the wooden blocks on his shoes snapped off. Because he was pulling with such force and the snake was pulling back with such force that even though he dug those into the ground, they just snapped right off. And of course, after suddenly losing his footing, losing this resistance that was helping him stay up, he stumbled forward a little bit. And right as he thought, this is it, I'm a goner. I'm going to fall into the river and I'm going to get eaten. He managed to collect himself one last time. He planted his feet in the ground again and he pulled with everything that he had. He just... Sorry, that. Maybe I'll edit that out in post. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if the constipation noise is something I'll keep. But he's pulling with everything that he's got. And the story says that he pulled with such force that he caved the ground in a good 6 inches with his feet. He just did a whole, Dragon Ball Z Super Saiyan when they charge up. The ground around them just crushes underfoot. Actually, might be stories like this where that little trope comes from. I'm going to have to look into that. And he's pulling and pulling, and he's just about to give up when all of a sudden, the snake goes limp. Almost like a rope that had a lot of stress on it had just been cut. And when he looked over to the water, he could see blood mixing with the water in the middle of the river. Now, he wasn't entirely sure what had happened, but immediately now that the snake was not pulling him, he grabbed the snake's tail and got his foot out of the tail and had this massive mark stuck on his leg. And he thought that maybe he could go to the river and wash it off, which is what he did. He went over and tried to wash it off, but it didn't come off with just regular water. And at this point, a bunch of his servants and this page boy showed up. I'm guessing is that when this page boy saw what was happening, he ran to go get some help. And at this time, this is when they actually had arrived. They, fortunately, had also brought some sake with them. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe they weren't there to help. Maybe they had just brought some drinks because they were going to party on the riverbank with Tsuneyo. But they had some sake, and they used the sake to wash this mark off of his leg. But it wasn't just that there was a mark on his leg, it's that it was wounded, like having the snake grip him so hard and pull so hard, he had an imprint on his leg. But after making sure that Tsuneyo was good, they turned to this now snake corpse, which was just lying there, and they pulled it onto shore to see what it was. And when they saw it, they could not believe how massive this snake actually was. The story says that in diameter, the body of the snake was 1 shaku thick, which a shaku is just under a foot. So huge, legendarily, unrealistically sized snake. And they also went to the other bank to see if they could go find the other half of the snake, because they only drug up one half of the snake's body. So they went to the other side to see if they could find the other half, the half with the head, and they found that the head portion of it had actually intertwined itself among some roots of a tree, and that it had then sent its tail out to go snag Tsuneyo and try to drag him into the water. Now, luckily, Tsuneyo had won this tug of war, but everyone was not only surprised at how big this snake was, but the fact that the snake could generate so much power as to snap itself in half, because that's what happened, is it had pulled so hard that it had snapped right in the middle. Like, it was unbelievable. They could not believe what had just happened. However, they saw it with their own eyes. But of course, being bros and hypermasculine men, their first thought was not, oh boy, maybe we need to get Tsuneyo some medical attention. Their first thought was, bro, how strong was that snake? Should we try to figure it out? So of course, they got a big rope and they tied it to Tsuneyo's leg. And they got 10 men to pull. And with Tsuneyo resisting, they got 10 men. They pulled on him. And with 10 men, Tsuneyo went, nope, not strong enough. So they got a few more guys. Nope, still not enough. And then they got more. Nope, still not enough. Until finally they got 60 men to pull against Tsuneyo. And at that point, Tsuneyo finally went, yeah, I think it was something like this. And again, Tsuneyo won this tug of war. So that means he was stronger than 60 men. So because of this whole thing, a lot of people started saying that Tsuneyo was actually worth 100 men when it came to feats of strength. And thus is it said that in ancient times, there were sumo wrestlers, sumo men, sumo bito, there were sumos of such legendary, inhuman strength. All right, that's it. That's the story. Really simple one, really fun campfire, folksy kind of a story. Really short, sweet, to the point, and hopefully I did it justice. But I appreciate you very much for watching, giving this a listen. Ito katajike no koso haberikere. I don't have much in the way of commentary on this one. It's pretty self-explanatory. Well, but if I was to make one assumption, a water-dwelling snake that's about a foot thick, I have heard that there are anacondas in South America, in the deep, deep parts of the jungle, that are about yay big. Anacondas, of course, like being in water. Now, am I fool enough to believe that there was an anaconda in ancient Japan? No. Obviously, this is a folk tale. Obviously, it is a tall tale. I mean, what kind of snake hunts by grabbing its prey with its tail while anchoring its head among tree roots? But you know, it's very interesting that the giant snake was in the water and not just like on land ambushing people, you know? And so I find it very interesting how, despite not having anacondas in Japan, they came up with a snake, a mythical snake, that was like an anaconda. Very interesting how, despite not having any personal experience with these kinds of snakes, they could imagine one like it, and they would get so close. Anyway, that's going to do it for now. Please like, share, subscribe. Share to all your weeb friends, especially. I'm sure they'll love it, and they'll love you. That's going to be it for now. I will catch you guys later. Bye.